Hello, I am Carolyn May of Kitsap Roots, and this is Ask a Garden Coach. This is a series that I have designed to answer your questions because when you're in the garden, we have lots of questions. And I want to answer them in ways that you can understand, will give you actionable steps to help you feel confident in your garden and enjoy the journey along the way. In this episode of Ask the Garden Coach, we're talking about garden planning because it's January, it's dark, it's cold, and we're all being tempted with seed catalogs and wanting to get out into the garden. So, we're going to answer a few questions, and I'm going to give you some garden planning tips and advice to help you get your garden for 2022 off to a great start. The first comment, it's not really a question, it's more of just a ha 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 joke, funny, from Tammy. And it said, sprinkle your magic fairy garden dust from yours to mine. Tammy, that's so sweet. I don't claim to have any fairy dust. And I really wanted to make a point to talk about this for a second, that growing a garden is not something that it's a specialized skill. It's a bunch of little things you have to learn, and anybody can learn how to do it. And so I just encourage you, if you are a new gardener or if you're someone who's kind of dabbled in gardening and never really felt successful, pick something to learn and really dig deep into it this year. And every year you just keep scaffolding that knowledge, and you're going to have all of the garden skills you're ever going to need before you can really even realize it. The next question is about irrigation. Do you break up grow space in sections or run one system for the whole space? Irrigation is also a great thing to plan before you even get started in the garden, because really, if you don't have a good watering system, you're going to waste your precious sunny outside time this summer with a hose in your hand. And unless you choose to have the hose in your hand, you'll become a slave to the hose. And nobody wants to become a slave to the hose. So, do you break up into zones? Do you not break up into zones? What do you do with irrigation? It really depends on the size of your space and the location of your water source. I know some growers who just have a bunch of rain barrels daisy chained together and do drip irrigation and just drip all the time. You can get emitters that will emit specific dosages of water. And so you're giving each individual plant exactly what it needs. And to know what it needs, really, you just have to do your research on that specific plant. But there are a few water-wise gardening tips that I can give you that will help you maximize your garden and not hit your water bill as much this summer. One, mulch. Mulching your soil is going to give your soil insulation. It's going to help retain moisture, keep things nice and cool, and your plants are going to be happier. Group plants with similar water needs together. You don't want to put a bunch of root crops with a bunch of like water thirsty pepper plants or fruiting crops, because those root crops are sitting in the water and they say, help me, I'm too wet. So don't do that. You want to make sure you group things with similar water needs together. But intercropping different plants together will allow you to get moisture, deep rooting, shallow rooting. Like, you can get this whole ecosystem of fantastic plant combinations that will shade the soil, give nutrients. But that's like a whole topic altogether, which I will get into in another episode. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, organic matter. If your soil is drying out really, really fast, have you taken a soil test? Do you know if you have the right nutrients, the right soil type? Like, do you know what's happening in your soil? And a soil depleted in organic matter is going to dry out really fast, or it's going to be really, really clay and dense. So if that's something you're unsure of, I highly, highly recommend getting your soil tested to help you know exactly what's going on below the soil. There are also self-watering containers you can get, wicking systems if you don't want to be out in the garden all the time. Oya pots, buried earthen things that, like, it's essentially a water reservoir in a clay earthen container that it's porous. And so the water seeps directly to the roots right where they need it. I've used them a few times doing DIY versions using just plain old terracotta pots with a cork shoved in the bottom, buried in the earth, and they work pretty well. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, choosing native plants. They're already adapted to your water needs. They are already pest resistant. You'll hear me talk about native plants over and over and over because they are just so good. So really, do you break it up into sections? You can reach out and show me your irrigation plans and your garden plans. We can set up a coaching session and I can tailor it to you. But that's really something that is very, very garden specific, that it's hard to generalize. But I hope some of those tips are helpful. The next one comes from Karen, and it is about how to best get rid of garden pests, caterpillars, mildew, etc. Okay, pests and diseases are symptoms in the garden. When you have a lot of pest pressure, it's usually a sign that there is an imbalance in your ecosystem. Either you don't have the right nutrients in the soil for the plants to be healthy, or you don't have any pollinator attracting plants in your garden, like flowers. A lot of people in the vegetable world, you don't think, maybe I should consider growing some flowers along with my vegetable plants. But I highly encourage you to think about adding flowers to your garden this year because they can disrupt the smells, they can disrupt all kinds of things so that the pests can't find the things that they want to eat. And I can't blame them for wanting to eat the delicious food that you're growing that we want, right? There's a great idea around pest management. It's called integrated pest management. And it's the idea that the goal isn't to get rid of pests in the garden. The goal is to live with them and balance what they're doing in the garden. And so some of the techniques with integrated pest management, or IPM, are to attract beneficials. Having pollinator, nectar-rich flowers in your garden. Using mechanical controls like covers or trap crops. So you have a bunch of aphid-hungry type plants. Plant some nasturtium. Nasturtium are even more attractive to aphids, and they will congregate on your nasturtium plants, leaving some of your other plants alone. So you can think that way, give them something that they'll want more than what you're trying to grow. And then the other part would be disrupting the life cycle of the pest. If you know you have a specific moth or a specific fly, you can study the life cycle of that pest to target the management at a specific phase, whether it be the mating phase, the egg phase, the larval phase. And really, to answer which one, go check out your local university extension office. Go check out a master gardener, and they will help you find solutions for the pests that you have where you live. Like for example, I'm a master gardener in my county, so I am aware of the pests where I live. They're different where you live. So check out with those local, usually free resources, and they will help you find the answers. All right, next is talking about growing in small spaces. Now, whether you have a huge field or a couple of boxes or a container on your patio, a lot of these techniques translate. It's just a scalable thing. So whenever you're thinking about choosing plants for your garden, give them a job description. Instead of saying, I really, really want to grow that one, think, okay, restraint. I need something that will grow in part sun. I have really acidic soil. I'm not going to be able to water it all the time, and I only want it this big. Well, if you do it that way and give that job description to the plant, you can really hone in on the specific plant that would grow well there. Instead of saying, I really want to grow this plant, where do I put it? Right? So think that way. Give your plants job descriptions, and then they'll tell you where they want to go. So with those job descriptions, you think of scale, color, form, bloom time, growing needs, and really just define their purpose before you start shopping. For flowers, excuse me, some of the best flowers to grow in small spaces. One, look for cutting flowers that are bedding varieties. When you find plants that are called bedding varieties, they're not usually going to be as tall, as sprawling. Now, I know that means they might not have nice long stems for cut flowers, but you can still use them and make beautiful things. There's bedding varieties for dahlias, for cosmos, zinnias, marigold, snapdragon. You can really find a lot of beautiful flowers that will not get monstrous. And knowing the variety is key, because like cosmos, for example, I've grown some varieties that got to be 6 feet tall. And then I had other varieties that were 2 feet tall. So knowing your variety, look at your seed packet. It'll tell you the maximum height and size of the plant. And it's going to be close. And that's going to help you a lot. Don't forget your standard beauties, begonias, petunias, supertunias, violas, Johnny jump ups. They're all great for a beautiful flower color. Alyssum is a great one in the garden because it can act as a trap crop for your vegetables. Let your herbs flower. That's another one I would say. Whenever my oregano or marjoram flowers, the bumblebees go berserk. They absolutely love it. Succulents, I love them. They're evergreen, drought tolerant. They have beautiful flowers when they do bloom, but they're even pretty when they're not blooming. And then go native. There's lots of great native plants, seasonal beauty. Find things that will grow where, in your small spaces or wherever you want to put them. Best veggies. First, I would say for small spaces, I would look for bush varieties of vegetables. Usually you'll see determinate is the word describing. You'll find determinate tomatoes. You can find bush cucumbers, bush zucchini, bush beans. Finding bush varieties that are not going to vine all over the place. They're going to set a smaller and more at one time crop. They're not going to crop throughout the season. They're going to have one big crop and be done. But they grow better in containers or in small spaces, and they won't be as sprawling. Peppers, a lot of them don't get very big, but make sure you have the heat for them. Salad greens. Everybody could grow a salad. Salad. And when I say salad, you could grow a salad bowl with 100 varieties of greens, and it will be delicious, and you will be so happy. And then short season varieties. If you have a small space and you want to maximize your stuff, don't look for things that are going to take up the garden for 120 days. Look for things that are maybe a 50, 60-day crop. Herbs are gorgeous. They make beautiful landscape plants, and many of them, like thyme, sage, lavender, rosemary, will be very happy in a container, as long as it's the right size container. Let's see what else we have. Oh, fruit. Fruit can be grown in trees in multi-grafted varieties. So you'll have one apple tree with 4 or 5 varieties. And you can even go a step farther and get your fruit trees espaliered, which is a fantastic pruning method for small spaces. And then looking for dwarf varieties. Going vertical, trellising, and then perennials. There are so many beautiful ones out there. Just make sure when you look at perennials, you're looking for ones that have mounding habits instead of spreading. Spreading habits. So those are the questions I have for today's episode. I wanted to talk for a brief moment about planning your garden this year and what are some of the basic tips I have for making your garden a success. 1, what's the story? Give your garden a story before you go into picking out your plants. How do you want to use it? What are all of the features of your garden that are they're there? Patios, walkways, sight lines, all those things. Really establish that first. And then write down your wants and needs. And then make sure whatever you're planning, you look around you. Like for me, my home is surrounded by cedar trees and hemlock trees and big leaf maple trees. And so I want to make sure that my garden fits into that location. Number 2, it's your garden and nobody else's. So when you are going to garden, I want you to think about writing down your mission statement, almost like a business plan. Write down your mission statement. What do you want your story to tell? What do you want your garden to do? Do you want it to Do you want to spend a lot of time in your garden or not? Do you want everything to be flowering at a certain time or stagger all over? Do you want a big old harvest or you just want something to snack on? All those things will help you decipher and identify what kind of garden you want to have. And then once you have that mission statement, all of the ideas that you come up with, you can put it up against that main mission and be like, does this support this? Does this support this? And if it does, great. And if not, you can tuck that idea away for next year or in the future when maybe it will support that future goal or vision. So when you brain dump, again, filter it through. You can make a mood board. Mood board, it's fancy. And then prioritize all of your ideas based on that first mission statement. And then you can narrow it down. And for a garden in layers, instead of picking the plants first, give them their job descriptions. So first, start with the hardscape, start with the pathways, start with all of those things, start with the big things. And even though they're really tiny when you bring them home, make sure you plant them based on what they're going to be when they're really big. And then you can map out your beds and get things going. And at that point, start to get your seed catalogs out and get your orders ready. That is all I have for this episode of Ask a Garden Coach. If you have questions you would like answered on garden planning or anything else coming up in the future in the garden, please leave them in the comments below or email me, find me on Instagram, and I will answer them for you. You can also reach out to me for specific advice because I am a garden coach and I can help you plan your space, answer your specific questions, and you can find that information on my website. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel because it's going to help. And yeah, I'd love to be doing this for many, 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 many episodes. We'll see you in the next one.